On August the 4th, 2025, the UK Online Safety Act came into effect in the United Kingdom. It is a subject of fierce debate, especially as you now have to provide identification in order for you to have a fierce debate using your paw. So, as I've got a lot of pent-up tension, I thought I'd play this game, which from the title surely must be based on a grizzle flick. I can't wait to see this digitised Beverly Hills chick get taken over a table or a washing machine. Unfortunately though, my jilter will have to remain in its skin coin purse, but at least the post-nut shame will remain unspilled upon my carpet. No, this is instead based on a movie that I've never even heard of before making this video, but I have now seen, as there are a couple of uploads of the full movie on YouTube. YouTube doesn't seem to be in too much of a hurry to close these down, which probably tells its own story. I mean, they might now that I've done this video grassing them up, but who am I kidding? No one see this video. So what is it if it doesn't feature a lady actress taking the HS2 of all railings? Well, it's an action movie that has a rather neat little conceit. America's wealthiest citizens are evacuated from their rich gated communities in Beverly Hills late at night by a staged chemical spill. The villainous mastermind behind this is Robert Davies Bat Masterson, a mega-rich hotelier and US football club owner who is using this disturbance to loot the homes, banks and businesses of the moneyed district. There's just one issue. Masterson's own star quarterback and meathead extraordinaire David Boomer Hayes, who missed the invitation to leave because he was in the bath about to get some poontang pie. What follows is a little die-hard explosion heavy jaunt. It's more try-hard than die-hard, to be fair though, thanks to the poor chemistry between the actors, sloppy editing and a lot of very noticeable post-recorded ADR lines. Ken Wile's mulleted Boomer is likeable, but Ken Wile is not action movie lead material, and his interactions with both love interest Harley Jane Kozak, who plays Laura, and comedy sidekick reformed corrupt cop Ed Kelvin aren't as natural as some of the exchanges you'd get in a Willis or Stallone movie from the same era. And yes, Kelvin is indeed played by Max Headroom actor Matt Frewer, who in this movie uses his natural voice, which sounds exactly like Kermit the Frog, and once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. For all its many flaws, it's far from unwatchable though. There's a certain amount of charm on display here, not least the Beverly Hills recreated sets in Mexico that get absolutely obliterated by B-movie legend Branscombe Richmond in his SWAT tank. If you like late 20th century pyrotechnic practical effects, it's a very good movie for you to watch. Ironically, one of the problems that beset the production was that a truck carrying the set workers' pay found itself at the wrong end of a heist, and unfortunately there wasn't a hairy-neck 90s quarterback around to stop that sort of violent pilfering from happening to that. This was far from the movie's biggest problem though. Producers held talks with Arnie to take the lead, which he turned down, which you suspect would have turned this movie into a bit of a minor cult classic. And the real death knell came for director Jay Fury's work when the original distributor Orion went bankrupt in the early part of the 1990s. Columbia Pictures, via their subsidiary Nelson Entertainment, eventually picked up the rights and only gave it a very limited release in 541 theatres with very little advertising. As a result, it had one of the worst openings of any movie in 1991, grossing a limp $939,277 during its run at the box office, which was a mere fraction of its $19 million budget. That is a certified box office bomb by anyone's standards. From a mere 5 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, The Taking of Beverly Hills has an aggregated score of just 40%. Released in 1991, The Taking of Beverly Hills computer game was already onto a loser after being strapped to this cinematic turkey, not literally. It was only published in 2 locations, those being Germany, courtesy of Accolade, and the US, courtesy of Capstone Software. Capstone had a history of DOS-related movie and TV tie-ins that they published, with Zorro, An American Tale, Five All Goes West, Surf Ninja, Terminator 2 Chess, and William Shatner's Tech War having games published by them. Don't look for quality in there, there's none. This game was the last coding job for Off the Wall Productions, who did a computer game based on Bill and Ted as well. Was it good? No. How does this fare though? Well, here's my first attempt at the game, from start to finish. These graphics on this here intro, not great. Oh god, I'm so tiny. And, oh. Oh! Ooh, and hard boot out of the game as well. Fantastic. Great. So yes, it's a very welcoming game, as you can see. So it's a rather unwieldy and pretty harsh point-and-click adventure. You'll control 2 characters, your big man Boomer, who gets free rein to strut about the abandoned downtown Beverly Hills, and Laura, who has to uncover Masterson's master plan in the hotel that all of the Beverly Hills residents have been supplanted into, no doubt making a buck or two out of the local government, the dirty dog. Whereas Boomer's adventures are notably very sparse. There should be hundreds of people teeming around this hotel, but there's no one to be seen. You'll not be Laura for very long, so if you're a fan of hairspray heavy early 90s lady hair, you might be disappointed. If you're a fan of manly mullets though, you're in luck, as you'll be clad in that number 12 jersey of Boomer for the meat of the game. Considering Frewer's Ed Klein is at Boomer's side for the entire movie, except the bit where he's lusting it up in the bath, you'll be disappointed to find that he's completely ignored in the game. It follows the plot of the movie oddly closely for a game, but to not have Ed in it seems a bit of an oversight. Surely he could have been like a clue giver or something, some sort of presence. It's Matt Frewer, for heaven's sake. He's probably the most famous person in this film, apart from Robert Davey, I'd say. You'll spend most of the game as this tiny sprite, but the perspective changes when you enter a building to either a closer third person or a first person view. This is where you'll harvest objects in these locations. Objects that will be used in a series of puzzles that will make Boomer's life a damn sight easier. Do I give props to this particular shop, which is called Deja Vu, and you have to keep entering to find the thing you need? No, it's silly. The only way to stop Boomer getting blown away at the very start of the game, as you saw in my little mini playthrough, is to beeline straight to the police station and pick up the body armour. Obviously, this will then be seen by the criminal ex-cops, who won't bother to try and shoot you when you try and enter any of the shops or businesses that you plan to go into next. They're very nice not to aim for your lantern jaw. Most of the puzzles will require you to do things in a particular order though, else the criminals will try and put an end to your malarkey. The puzzles are, for the most part, very grounded compared to the esoteric oddness of some of the game's contemporaries of the time, but some of the later tasks would certainly be aided by a bit of prior knowledge of watching the film, which, let's face it, not a lot of folk are going to have done. It's relatively short in puzzles and content, but also it's not the smoothest to control unless you go for the full keyboard control, as any other option will have you having to wrestle with a controller of some sort, as well as the keyboard, in an adventure that sometimes requires a bit of fast reactions. Ultimately, it's not a very good or well-realised point-and-click adventure, and it's based on a movie that doesn't really suit that genre anyway. I'm not a big fan of the film, but if someone did a hack of the NES Die Hard with a plotline from this movie, I'd be all over it. It would be great. However, given that the movie had all the cultural relevance of star Ken Wall's later career, I can't really see that happening. But it would have been a better use of the licence, even a scrolling beat-em-up. As a point-and-click game, doesn't suit it at all, no. As I said earlier, the movie is available on YouTube, so I'd recommend that if you're interested in what is a fairly good post-Die Hard concept, even if it doesn't fulfil that idea to any great standard. As for the game, I would say you're best off leaving it rather than taking Beverly Hills. Due to its low-key release, the only English language review I could find is from Cheapo Mag Games X, which makes me wonder if there was a UK publishing of this game planned. Probably after the movie flopped, they probably didn't bother. They gave it a 1 out of 10 in February 1992 and said Accolade has produced a game so far below their usual standard. I certainly can't recommend it. This one is pretty dire stuff. Oh dear. Oh, one last little tidbit, or titbit in this case. Pamela Anderson would have made her movie debut in this as a cheerleader, but her scene was ultimately cut. So here's a picture of Pammy in her swimwear, and I guess I get to relieve myself after the disappointment of finding out what this film was about. Yay! We end on a wanking joke. That's this channel in a nutshell. If you want more of this, have a look at some of the other videos. But until then, like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.